Let us now actually learn the art of reading less but understanding more. A smart reader does not read everything, he reads only what matters. In my previous video, I talked about some techniques. One, reading in patches. Two, ignore the points that are repetitive or which just give you elaboration of the same point. Third, identify the themes of the respective paragraphs using the keywords. And fourth, deep dive only when the question demands. I would actually read this passage aloud in front of you. Just remember that when I ignore certain words or sentences, it's an indirect way of telling you that these words or sentences are repeated, unimportant, or redundant. And I would actually have ignored them had I read this passage in the question, in the examination. Two, when I read a paragraph, if I reduce the speed while reading, it's an indirect way of saying that this is a new point which is getting introduced. So focus on that new point. Third, after every paragraph, I will write down the themes of that respective paragraph in the form of certain keywords. Now, how does this help me? It helps me to retain what I've actually read in that respective paragraph. So, those of you who worry about, I tend to forget what I read earlier, this is a technique that you can use. And last but not the least, after I have the themes of the respective paragraphs, when I do the summation of the individual themes, what am I going to get? I will effectively get the main theme of the entire passage. In short, the thumb rule says the main theme of an entire RC will never focus on the themes of individual paragraphs. Let us now practically start by reading this RC. In this video, I will be explaining what I actually mean by reading in patches, speed reading, skimming through the passage, that is the first layer of reading, and last, how do you note down the themes of the individual paragraphs. In the early 1920s, settlers came to Alaska looking for gold. They traveled by the boat into the gold fields. The road they used to travel is called Iditarod Trail. The trail quickly became a major thoroughfare in Alaska as the mail's supplies were carried. People also used it to get from place to place. In winters, the settlers' only means of travel was via the dog sledge. Of course, I ignored certain words. For example, if you notice, I did not read people, including the priest, ministers, judges. As long as I know people used it, which all different set of people used it does not make a difference. Next, the road is named as Iditarod Trail. Trail means as a road. I can clearly ignore that it's one of the national historic trails. And same ways, people travel by the boat, but where? To the coastal towns of seaward. I do not need it. The first paragraph has only introduced this Iditarod trail, and it has talked about the significance as to people used this trail to carry their supplies and to go from one place to another. In fact, the last line is giving the significance that the settlers' only means of travel was via this trail. So the theme of my first paragraph is introduction to the trail, usage, and second, significance. This is the theme, and these are the keywords of the first paragraph. And this is the technique that you should be able to apply. Second paragraph. Once the gold rush ended, many gold seekers went back to where they had come from, and suddenly there was a less travel. Introduction of the airplanes meant the dog teams were no longer the standard mode of transportation. And of course, there was less need for land travel in general. The final blow to the use of the dog teams was appearance of the snowmobiles. In fact, 1960s, most Alaskans didn't even know the trail existed, or the dogs had played a crucial role in Alaska's early settlements. Dorothy Tan, a self-made historian, recognized how few people knew about the use of sledge dogs and about the Iditarod Trail. To raise the awareness, she came up with the idea to have a dog sled race over the trail. Presented the idea to a musher named Joe. Soon they were working together to promote the idea of the race. Did you notice that when I started with the second paragraph, the first two lines, my reading speed was less? Why? Because whenever you change the paragraph, the subsequent paragraph's first line is likely to introduce a new point. Second, the moment I started reading about Dorothy Tan, this was an absolutely new concept introduced in the second paragraph, somewhere midway. That is again when I reduced my reading speed. So, the takeaway is whenever you read or come across a new point, focus on it because that is hinting towards the change of direction in the passage. Now, if you notice, unlike the first paragraph where the tone was positive, the second paragraph has got a negative tone. But I have a significant character, Dorothy, and I have Joe and Rodgers who are introduced. But what is the theme of the second paragraph? The first half says, once the gold rush ended, people went back to where they had come from and people stopped using this trail. So, discontinuing the use of the trail. There were other reasons also, modern forms of transportation. And further, Dorothy, she wanted to raise the awareness about this road. And that is why she came up with the concept of race. So, the theme of the second paragraph is the reasons for discontinuing the trail, Dorothy creating awareness about the trail via a race or via the concept of race. Let's move further with the third paragraph. Many people worked to make the dog race a reality in 1967. The Aurora Club from the adult camp helped clear years of overgrowth. To raise the interest in the race, somebody offered a 25,000 purse. Joe donated an acres of land, and the short race, approximately 27 miles long, was put on a second time in 1969. Paragraph number 3 is only talking about the details taken by the people or the efforts taken by the people. A few of them donated something, a few helped in clearing the overgrowth, a few of them offered some kind of donation in the form of money. Now, who gave what? Who helped in clearing the overgrowth? When will I read it? I will deep dive only if there is a question on what were the efforts taken by the respective people or who took efforts in that respective zone. So, the basic technique that you need to remember is do not worry about too many details being given in the passage. You only need to know that the efforts taken by the people are located in the third paragraph. And if a question is asked on that aspect, I will immediately pop up towards the third paragraph. I will deep dive and then I will shortlist the option. And now the last one. After these first two successful races, the goal was to lengthen a race a little further. 1972, US Army reopened the trail. Decision was made to take the race up to Nome. There were many who believed it could not be done, but the race went. 22 mushers finished, and till date 400 people have completed it. Brilliant. The tone of the last paragraph is positive. In fact, the last paragraph says the first two races were successful. And then they focused on lengthening the race up to Nome. Many believed it could not be done, but it went further. And in fact, 400 people till date have completed it. So, what is the theme of the last paragraph? The final races being a success. So, if I were to summarize this entire RC, what would it be? Introduction of the Iditarod Trail, usage and significance, reasons why people stopped using it, modern forms of transportation, Dorothy, awareness of the trail via race, efforts taken by the people, and last, the race being a success. Now, if I get a question on what were the efforts taken, paragraph 3, why people discontinued the use, paragraph 2, what was the significance of the road, paragraph 1, the races being a reality, last paragraph, and if there's a question on Dorothy and her team, second and subsequently third paragraph. This is what I mean by skimming the passage, reading in patches, which basically helps you to improve or increase your speed, and last, notation of the keywords. Do practice this technique and let me know whether it helped you or not.